Hello and welcome to the video. This is a look at something that has just been released from RunCam. This is the RunCam Thumb. This is a little action camera that weighs less than 10 grams. Yes, you heard that right. This is a 9.8 gram action camera that records in 1080p and is perfect for really lightweight applications where you don't have the ability to put lots of weight on the model. Now, I've been waiting for the next big thing from RunCam after seeing their Split HD that I looked at a few weeks ago. RunCam are one of those camera vendors who actually understand the hobby and have been making both FPV cameras and action cameras for a long time. I still have and use the RunCam camera systems here, particularly things like the 4K that goes and flies in the nose of one of my Dracs. But all these cameras from RunCam have internal batteries and are relatively heavy, and that kind of limits where you can use them. Now, my favourite action camera at the moment for stabilised footage is this thing here. This is the Peanut camera, and those of you that watch the channel will have seen this an awful lot. I really like the Peanut camera. This is a 28 gram action camera that provides some stabilised footage via an app on your phone. However, when I did the review of this, I made a couple of comments. The first was that it has a battery in it, and actually with the things that we're flying in radio control, there's already a battery that we could use, and that would save a huge amount of weight. That ideally putting something like a USB port on it would be nice to get the files off onto your computer without having to use an app. And also that rather than use internal storage, they should have used an SD card. Looks like RunCam were already looking at something like that, and that's what this is. This RunCam Thumb doesn't have a battery, it uses an SD card, it's powered by 5 volts, and we have lots of 5 volts available in our models. Only uses about 280 milliamps, so you could power it from the same kind of supply that you would typically use to run a half decent FPV camera system, or potentially even servos too. Now, the specs on this thing, this again is the RunCam Thumb. Resolution is stated at 1080p 60 frames a second, although I've been recording here and getting 50 frames a second. It's MP4, and excitingly it has a gyro built in too. Now, that gyro does mean that we can use it with GyroFlow. So I've been playing with that here. Again, it's very early days. I need to keep working on things like the calibration routine for the lens to make sure everything's working perfectly. Has the micro USB connection at the side. When it's plugged in, it's powered from that as well, and it just appears as a regular good old-fashioned USB thumb drive, no pun intended, that you can pull all the files from onto your computer. 128 gig max supported SD card, and the net weight is 9.8 grams. You do get lots of other things in the box along with it. I got a little 3D printable mount that I don't think you get with the production version, but in here there is also a mount for it that includes a vibration isolating pad. There's also an ND filter as well, so this is pretty useful. Field of view in this is about 450 degrees, and there's no option to change. Now, this is going to be great for some of the really lightweight quads and wings and planes that I'm flying here. If I wanted to add the Peanut camera on something like the Ranger T1 that I really like at the moment, then I need that 28 grams in the nose. I need an extra about 15 grams on the tail to offset the weight to get my central gravity right, even with moving the battery. So that's the thick end of 50 grams that I need to add to that model. That's a lot. However, adding something like this thumb to the same model, this weighs just under 10 grams, and I only need about 5 grams on the tail, so that's 15 grams versus 50 grams. Now, on a bigger model, you're not going to care about that, but on smaller models, 3-inch quads, smaller wings, and smaller planes, that can make all the difference. Now, in terms of how it performs, here is some unstabilized footage, raw from the camera. I'll shut up for a minute and you can hear the audio. And hopefully you can hear the audio isn't anything to write home about, but it's actually very usable if that's what you wanted to use it for. However, of course, the real fun comes when you start to play around with the stabilization stuff in GyroFlow, because the file names for the gyro information are stored in the same folder by the video, which makes it importing it into something like GyroFlow and using it a piece of cake. There's only a couple of things to note on this. Sadly, there is no option to stabilize the footage on board, and unfortunately it is only 1080p 60 frames a second. It would have been nice to have a 2.7K mode so that by the time you've played with all the stabilization and kind of had to zoom in GyroFlow, that you didn't lose some of that resolution. And only records in one orientation. You have to record it with the name the right way up, and that is a little bit of a shame. It does mean that if you want to mount it in any other orientation, then you're gonna have to play with stuff later on, potentially flipping video around in your video editor. It would have been nice if it had sensed that, so that you had lots of different options in where you could put it. No 5-volt adapter in the box, so you will need to find a reasonably clean 5 volts to power it from, but again, only 280 milliamps, you're not going to need much power. And the other thing is, you are going to need a decent PC running something like Windows 10 to use something like GyroFlow 1.0, which is what I would probably recommend you use to stabilize something like this to make the footage look as good as it can. So in summary, this is a new product from RunCam, and it shows that they are again really thinking about what us pilots want. Already got loads of action cameras around with integral batteries and other things that add a lot of weight, and they've stripped it down to give us a sub 10 grand camera that is a great way to record in 1080p 50-60 frames a second for the size, weight and money. I know that some are going to be disappointed that this isn't a 4K camera and have lots of features, and personally I need a lot more testing here and to get a load more flying on it. Unfortunately, since I've got the camera here, the weather's just been too bad, but I will post a video in a couple of weeks' time once I've had time to really put it through its paces. But for me, this is an ideal way for me to fly and film with friends, and at this price point I can afford to put a few on a model without worry, and if I smash or lose one, it's not going to break the bank. Thumbs up, RunCam, this is a really nice idea. If you are going to continue doing this, higher resolution with more options for mounting and automated orientation support would be fantastic. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.